Thank you. Now, let's hear from the president, Dr. Dominion V. Judah. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome. Thank you.
Growth that is not defined by numbers on charts, but by the quality of lives it produces for the people. This is where we must start. True growth serves humanity. It is growth that leaves no one behind and ensures that benefits of development are shared by all, from the wealthiest nations to the marginalized communities. It is growth that redefines success, moving beyond mere numbers towards a more profound and equitable understanding of prosperity. It is growth that provides the necessity that the people need to thrive on their own. This is not theoretical exercise. It's a call to action. The world has already seen the limitations of traditional economic growth. The models of traditional economic growth. It is now time for us to pioneer a new approach, one that puts people and their well-being at the center of economic growth. People must be at the center of economic growth. Only then can we create a resilient, sustainable, inclusive economies for the future. May I submit that global economic growth has for decades been driven by traditional models that largely rely on these top-down approaches, where policies and directives emanate from centralized authorities, whether governments, international organizations, or multinational corporations. These models, while well-intentioned, have been ineffective in achieving true inclusive and sustainable growth for all. They operate on a flawed assumption that economic development can be efficiently managed and directed from the upper echelons of power without considering the unique needs, potentials, and realities of local and subnational economies. One of the most critical shortcomings of traditional growth model is their failure to recognize the full potential of local economies. These top-down approaches assume that national level policies formulated in distant capitals or global centers can address the diverse challenges faced by local communities, local regions, and even local sectors. For instance, in the transportation sector, of the United States of America, you cannot use some of the policies there to address the issues of transportation needs in a nation like Zambia or Zimbabwe. You need to tailor these policies to make sure it meets the actual needs of the people within the locality. So gone are the days of unleashing global policies on people. There should be localized policies to address local issues, focused on local economies, and tapping into the latent possibilities that are hidden within the subnational and local economies. Every economy has great potentials, but it takes willingness and readiness to explore those potentials. Local economies are the bedrock of any nation's prosperity. The strength of a nation's economy does not solely rely on the decisions made in its political or financial capitals, but on the dynamism, creativity, and resilience of its local subnational territories. Ignoring this reality weakens national economies and leaves vast swathes of the populations more marginalized. We are actively redefining how we approach growth by focusing on subnational prosperity. We are shifting from top-down method of economic development to one that elevates local industries, fosters economic autonomy, and nurtures community-driven growth. This is not a suggestion, it is the actual path forward. If we do not change the way we do economies, by 10 years from now, almost all the currencies of the world will have no value. Some of us who live in developed nations might think that, oh yeah, it's a Zimbabwean issue. No. If America goes the Zimbabwe way, American dollar will soon become Zimbabwe dollar. So we must understand this and step up. If Europe does not do what we should do, in no time, the euro will become worthless. Think about it yourself. What has happened in a few years, how your currency have lost value in a few years, 3 years, 4 years, maybe 2 years, or maybe this year even. Think about that. We are talking about practical ways forward. How can we salvage this situation and ensure that we bring forth a different kind of system that will help to build economies locally and globally? In one of my books, Economics Win-Win Growth Strategies, Economics and Finance Win-Win Growth Strategies, I wrote there that if a car that is made to have 4 wheels loses 2 wheels and now has only 2, that car is grounded. It can't run. So the global economy cannot continue to boom if the local economies are neglected. An elephant is a huge animal. but the strength that carries the elephant is on the four legs. If one of the legs of the elephant goes bad, the huge elephant cannot stand properly. It becomes highly disadvantaged. The same thing applies to our local economies. We must pay attention to our local economies. And I want to help us here, especially those of us that are policymakers here. Every policy must be tailored to the local economy and ensure that it benefits the people. If we fail to do this, we aren't doing our nations any good. We are not doing our nations any good. The days of depending on foreign aids are coming to an end. The days of depending on external nation to come and help within our local nations is coming to an end. Every nation must rise up and begin to take steps forward. The traditional growth model is inherently flawed because it often imposes one-size-fits-all kind of solutions across regions with vastly different needs. Regions with different needs always are told to have the same solution to different needs. It doesn't work like that. National policies whether physical trade or industrial, often fail to account for the geographical, cultural, and infrastructural disparities that exist within regions. These policies may work in wealthier or more developed areas, but leaves the non-developed areas more underdeveloped and in a more dilapidated state. The glaring example of this is the application of global financial aid and foreign direct investment. These funds are often funneled through national governments and large corporations that implement projects in ways that ignore the needs of local communities. While there may be short-term benefits for these central governments or corporations involved, these interventions rarely lead to sustainable grassroots economic growth. Instead, they often result into dependency, with the local population having little ownership of the economic processes that affect their lives. Furthermore, centralized models often fail to address local economic crises and vulnerabilities. One of the major examples is the 2008 GFC, global financial crisis. During that crisis, for instance, the impact is felt unevenly across regions. Larger economies and urban areas may have the resources, infrastructure to recover quickly, while smaller or poorer regions are left behind, exacerbating inequality and undermining overall economic stability. The economic capital growth and resource model is a fundamental departure from this outdated paradigm. The economic growth capital resource is one of the brainchild of the WSANDN to focus on channeling resources directly into local economies, empowering regions with tools, capitals, and autonomy to direct their own growth. This model ensures that investments are made with deep understanding of local needs and priorities, not imposed from top to down. This is a system that encourages participation from all levels of society, allowing communities to define and pursue their own economic advancement. Another limitation of traditional growth model is the over-reliance on the national level metrics, such as the GDP we talked about earlier, the sole indicator of economic success. The GDP, by its very nature, is a poor measure of true prosperity. It does not capture the well-being of individuals and equitable distribution of wealth. It can rise while larger segments of the population are left behind in poverty, and it increases the expense of the environment or long-term social stability. The flawed focus on GDP has perpetuated the illusion of economic progress, even when the reality of the majority of the people has been stagnated or declining. The Poverty Reduction Index is the new metrics for success. By prioritizing poverty alleviation as the cornerstone of economic growth, we ensure that all sectors of society benefit from development. The poverty persistence in different regions is a product of relying on GDP as a metric for growth rather than poverty reduction as a metric for growth. The shift towards subnational prosperity, the creation of economic growth capital resource, and the introduction of the Poverty Reduction Index are not just theoretical propositions, they are active, dynamic forces shaping the future of global economic growth and development. This new vision focuses on empowering local communities and ensuring that wealth and resources are distributed equitably and fostering sustainable growth from the ground upwards. We are not merely suggesting these changes, we are implementing them. And through this groundbreaking approach, we will unlock the true potential of every community, every region, and every nation. This is the future of growth and development, and it begins now. As I try to conclude, in the face of evolving global challenges, the increasing need for inclusive, sustainable economic development and traditional growth paradigms are no longer suffice. We need a bold new approach that directly addresses the fundamental issues, the foundational needs of local and subnational economies, fostering growth from the ground up and ensuring that prosperity reaches every corner of the globe. This new approach is embodied by the concept of economic growth capital resources, EGCR. The economic growth capital resources is a dynamic, locally focused framework that is not just a suggestion, but a cornerstone of how we will achieve real transformative growth. This EGCR represents a paradigm shift in how we think about and invest in global economic development. At its core, it is about directing capital, resources, and investments towards subnational economies. The regions, the communities, and sectors that are often overlooked in the current top-down models of growth. It recognizes that economic growth is not just a one-size-fits-all solution. Different regions have unique needs, strengths, and opportunities. and any lasting success must be rooted in local context. This is exactly what EGCR will do. It is not about pouring money into economies. It's about creating infrastructure, fostering sectoral growth, and ensuring job creation at the grassroots level. By focusing on subnational territories, we are investing in the engines of true economic resilience and empowering the local economies that are critical to national and global success. EGCR is the tool that will allow us to create robust, self-sustaining economic ecosystems that are not dependent on distant policymakers or external aids, but driven by people, businesses, and industries within those communities. On this note, I'd like to put forth a little bit of the critical role of EGCR in infrastructure development. The traditional growth model often failed to adequately invest in infrastructure at the subnational levels, leaving regions without the foundation needed to stimulate sustained growth. So EGCR will directly address this gap by prioritizing infrastructure development, ensuring local economies are equipped with tools they need to support businesses, create jobs, and enable innovations. The channels of the economic growth, capital resources, will invest into critical infrastructure projects tailored to unique needs of each subnational territory, whether it is improving transportation networks to facilitating trades, upgrading energy grids to power industries, or building modern digital infrastructure to support emerging technologies. The economic growth capital resource will focus on the local and the specific, ensuring that resources are allocated where they are most needed. It is not just about building roads or power plants, it's about creating the infrastructure that allows entire economies to function and grow effectively. EGCR will bring forth a rejuvenation of local infrastructure to fuel growth. It will create jobs, reduce global unemployment, empower local entrepreneurs and innovations, foster sectoral growth with focused investments, strengthen global trade and economic integration. It will be a catalyst for strengthening local currencies.